The distress beacon had been broadcasting for 72 standard hours when Captain Elena Vasquez received the transmission. Her ship, the UES Defiance, was still 3 days out from the nearest human colony when the desperate plea crackled through their communications array. "This is colony ship Serenity of the Valani Republic." The translator converted the alien speech into choppy standard English. "Catastrophic engine failure. Life support failing. 200,000 civilians aboard. Please, anyone. We are dying." Lieutenant Commander Zhang looked up from his tactical station, his expression grim. "Captain, long-range sensors show at least 14 different vessels in range of that signal. None are responding." Vasquez studied the holographic display showing the location of the distressed colony ship. It was deep in neutral space, far from any major shipping lanes, the kind of place where inconvenient problems could be quietly ignored. "What about the Altarian cruiser that passed through this sector yesterday?" she asked. "They logged the distress call and continued on their scheduled route," Zhang replied. "Same with the Zephyrian trade convoy. And the Crystalline Federation patrol ship." Dr. Sarah Chen, the ship's cultural specialist, floated over from her workstation. "Captain, you need to understand something about the Valani. They're pacifists, absolutely committed to non-violence. They don't even have defensive weapons on their ships. And?" Vasquez asked, though she suspected she knew where this was leading. 3 months ago, they filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Council about human aggressive tendencies and warmongering behavior. They specifically requested that human vessels be barred from Valani space. The bridge fell silent, except for the steady hum of the ship's engines. Vasquez had heard the reports how the so-called civilized species of the galaxy viewed humanity as barely controlled savages, too quick to anger, too willing to fight. The Valani had been particularly vocal in their criticism after humans had intervened in a pirate attack on a neutral station, describing the human response as unnecessarily violent and barbarically disproportionate. "Captain," Chief Engineer Martinez's voice crackled over the comm, "I've been monitoring their transmissions. Their antimatter containment is failing. Best case scenario, they have maybe 18 hours before their life support completely shuts down." Vasquez looked around her bridge crew. These weren't the monsters the galaxy painted them to be. Zhang had 3 children waiting for him back on Mars. Dr. Chen spent her off-duty hours writing poetry. Martinez sent half his salary to support orphanages on Earth. They were people who had chosen to serve, to protect, to help. "Set course for the Valani ship," she ordered. "Maximum burn." "Captain," Dr. Chen said quietly, "they specifically don't want our help. The Galactic Council can file a formal complaint after we save those 200,000 lives." Vasquez cut her off. "Zhang, get me a channel to the Serenity." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a Valani commander whose pale blue skin had taken on a sickly gray pallor. The Valani were tall, willowy beings with large, expressive eyes that currently held a mixture of desperation and something that might have been shame. "I am Captain Vasquez of the human vessel Defiance," she announced. "We've received your distress call and are en route to assist." The Valani commander's expression shifted through several emotions. "Captain, we have requested that human vessels maintain distance from Valani space." "You're not in Valani space," Vasquez replied matter-of-factly. "You're in neutral territory, broadcasting a general distress call. We're the closest ship capable of rendering aid. But our cultural differences, our previous statements about human methods." Vasquez leaned forward in her command chair. "Commander, are your people dying?" "Yes." "Then cultural differences can wait until after we get them breathing safely. We'll be in range in 14 hours. Transmitting technical specifications for emergency docking procedures now." The next 12 hours were a frenzy of activity. The Defiance's engineering teams worked around the clock to fabricate compatible life support connections. Dr. Chen and her cultural team prepared emergency shelters that could accommodate Valani physiology. The medical bay was reconfigured to handle alien biology. When they reached the Serenity, the sight was heartbreaking. The massive colony ship drifted powerless, its hull scarred by multiple system failures. Emergency lights flickered weakly through its viewports, and debris from internal explosions floated around it like a metal snowstorm. Defiance to Serenity, Vasquez called. Preparing to dock. Have your people ready for emergency evacuation. The transfer took 6 hours. Human crew members worked tirelessly in environmental suits, welding temporary connections, jury-rigging life support systems, and physically carrying Valani civilians who were too weak to move on their own. There were no complaints about the smell of alien atmosphere, no hesitation when dealing with beings whose biology was completely foreign. Chief Martinez spent 3 hours in a toxic environment, manually repairing the Valani ship's antimatter containment just long enough to prevent a catastrophic explosion that would have killed everyone involved. Dr. Chen worked alongside Valani medics, sharing medical knowledge and supplies without reservation. Her team distributed food, water, and medicine to thousands of refugees, many of whom had never seen a human before. As the last of the critical patients were transferred to the Defiance's medical bay, the Valani commander approached Captain Vasquez in the main cargo hold that had been converted into an emergency shelter. "Captain," he said, his voice heavy with emotion, "I must ask, why? After everything we said about your species, why did you come?" Vasquez looked around the cargo hold, where her crew was distributing blankets to Valani children and helping elderly civilians get comfortable in temporary bedding. "Because that's what people do," she said simply. "When someone needs help, you help them. Doesn't matter what they said about you yesterday." The Valani commander's large eyes filled with what might have been tears. The other ships, the ones we consider civilized, they followed proper diplomatic protocols. They filed reports. They forwarded your distress call to appropriate authorities. They were rational and measured in their response. And none of them slowed down, he whispered. Only the so-called angry humans came. 3 days later, as they transferred the rescued Valani to a proper hospital ship that had finally arrived, Vasquez received a priority transmission from Earth Command. "Captain," Admiral Richardson's face appeared on her screen. "I've been getting some interesting communications from the Galactic Council. Apparently, there's been a formal retraction of several previous statements about human behavior. Something about reassessing their understanding of what aggressive actually means." Vasquez smiled. "Sometimes, Admiral, the best way to change minds is just to show them who we really are." As the Defiance resumed its original course, Dr. Chen approached the captain with a datapad. "Captain, we've been receiving messages from across the galaxy. It seems word about the rescue has spread." The messages were simple, but they represented something unprecedented: direct requests for human assistance from species that had previously considered them too dangerous to associate with. Looking out at the stars ahead, Vasquez realized that sometimes being called angry or aggressive was just another way of saying willing to act when others won't. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't such a bad reputation to have after all.